Serious, Redditors who speak a second language, what funny things have you overheard from people? My parents speak Malayalam, a Dravidian language that nobody speaks outside of the state it's from or gatherings specifically for it. I was on a vacation in Prague and out of the blue I hear, oh my god, there is so much it in my ass, how did I miss this? Is there a bathroom nearby? I turn around and look at the guy. He looks at me. It gets awkward. I point around the corner. He lowers his head and goes, my boss is from Kerala and speaks Malayalam. And I learn so many random words from her stories and the Malenglish she speaks to her husband sometimes. She calls him Guta, SP. It means little pig. She affectionately refers to her spouse, whom she adores, as a piggy. I love it. Pool guy. That's hilarious. I heard this exchange the other day, leaving the theater after Kimi no Na wa. Japanese guy number 1. Ha. Foreigners. Did they understand the movie? I wonder what they think. Japanese guy number 2. In the most indignant voice you can imagine. You never care about what I think. That's adorable. Adorable. I'm also in Japan, and every time I go shopping, I'm followed around by a group of 2 to 3 young guys always having some variation of this conversation. Huh, go talk to that foreign girl. No way, man. I can't speak English. Come on. Just say how are you? This is then followed by several minutes of them practicing hello and how are you? Together. This has never actually advanced into a conversation, despite it happening on a weekly basis. How I get this a lot, too. And a lot with middle schoolers. Oh. A foreigner. Say hi. We can practice the English we learned in class. I'm too shy to say hi. You do it. Fine. I will. Take in deep breath hello. I always smile and say hello back. Then comes the, she said hello back. My dad is a husky fellow. One day, while at an all-you-can-eat restaurant, the couple in the booth behind him said in our native language they, meaning the restaurant, are definitely not going to make any money on this guy. Dad turns around and says they'll be fine. This is definitely cringe-worthy on their part. I would have died inside. Language? Polish. I speak passable German. The company I worked for had just acquired a firm in Germany. I was invited into the department head's conference call. As we went through the American departments, it was clear that it was a richow. Inefficiencies. Itching each other out on the call. The works. After an hour of this, it was the Germans' turn. Clearly unaware that they were no longer on mute. In beautifully gruff German they blurted out what I translated to stupid Americans. Just do your damn jobs, you lazy its. Followed swiftly by, now in English. No issues in Germany. Everything is proceeding as per the schedule. She say miss. Marked urine Verdamton job IHR fallen sork. Close. I once got called over by my boss because there were some Mexican guys outside yelling, waving their arms, and pointing at each other. He was scared they were going to start a brawl or something and asked me to go ask them to leave. Turns out they were just some friends arguing over whose wife made the best pozole. Mexicans use a lot of wild gestures when talking. It was the only way I could understand what my grandma wanted as she spoke rapid Spanish. I'm Indian American, but in India, everybody knows I'm American. For one thing, I'm much taller, etc. I was on a train as a teenager when I had braces on my teeth. This grandmother with her grandson was sitting across from me. She said to her grandson, "Look at these Americans. They don't brush their teeth and they have to have them screwed in." I think she was just trying to scare him into better oral hygiene, but it was hilarious. I started commenting on the weather and the view and she looked shocked and then disgusted with me. Ain't my fault that you assumed the brown American wouldn't understand you. Fellow Indian American here. This guy who spoke 20-ish languages came to our school and was talking about greetings elementary by the way. He then proceeded to say in my language, "Did you eat your spinach?" implying that we Indians say that whenever someone comes over to our house. Everyone in the auditorium looked at me when I burst out laughing. Worth it, man. My parents' friends would always test my Malayalam with one of 2 questions. 1. Do you understand? Or 2. Do you want tea? I think this says something about malice. My dad, by comparison, would test other people's kids with "Do you want a smack?" I'm from Bangladesh, but I grew up in America. I have a similar issue. Last time I went back, I went to a spa with my cousin, and when the ladies there realized I was from America, they started talking to each other in Bengali about how dark I was, etc. because they assumed I wouldn't understand Bengali. I would have been more offended, except then they kind of started imagining what America was like, which was pretty funny. Like it makes sense they're all so dark, because all they drive are the topless cars, convertibles, and they probably have those big houses right on the beach. And then my cousin came back into the room and asked me something in Bengali, and I responded in fluent, accentless Bengali, and there was this shocked little pause in the air. But I just pretended I didn't notice and continued talking with my cousin. Despite speaking Bengali fluently and dressing like everyone else, somehow people, especially shopkeepers, still could tell I'm not brought up in Bangladesh. And it's definitely not height that gives me away. I'm barely 5 feet 2 inches. I think it's because I'm a little too polite when I talk to the salespeople. One time I reflexively said thank you to a shop boy bringing me a glass of water and he nearly dropped the water. Everything about your story made me laugh. Can we talk about the Desi spa? Freaking hilarious. I went to one in Bangalore for a friend's wedding, and, I think the business model is to insult your client until they feel so bad about themselves that they buy more services. The owner told the person prepping my facial to put in face bleach. I said no. Then she suggested whitener. I said no. Then she said okay, fine, tang remover. I said no. I mean, what the hell? This is the same woman who told me I had to wax my arms because I was hairy like a man. I have very little arm hair for an Indian woman, let alone an Indian man. I was in a cab once, and the driver was on his mobile, speaking to a friend in French. He started talking about me and my appearance. Yeah, cute. Red hair. Boobs aren't so big. I first felt kind of annoyed and insulted, but then decided to mess with him a little. I continued giving him directions in English for the whole 20-minute cab ride. When we got near my block, I said, in perfect French, here is perfect, you can pull over. Thanks, and say hi to your friend for me. Here in the Philippines people are usually trilingual. You have your provincial language, then the national language Filipino, and English. I was inside a packed bus once going home from school when 2 local ladies were audibly talking about this middle-aged Caucasian guy who was seated behind them. It is always assumed that white guys have bigger junks compared to Asian men. So these ladies went on giggling while talking about the guy's supposedly huge peanuts in the local language. At the next stop, the white guy stood up and casually told the girls in perfect Filipino, "Excuse me, the man with the huge peanuts is passing by." Was there any response to that or just stunned silence? I used to run an Asian market in central Mississippi. I was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white guy in a mostly Korean store. Being so close to the Nissan plant in Canton, many of my regulars were Japanese guys. I spoke proficient Japanese at the time. A group of guys came in that I'd never seen before. As with all new customers, I never assumed their ethnicity and greeted them in English. They start making their rounds looking up and down the aisles. I can hear they're speaking Japanese and looking for pickled radish. Typically with new customers I'll give them some time to explore, then check on them and ask if they need help finding anything specific. As I'm walking around from behind the counter, I hear one guy suggest asking me where the radish would be. Just before rounding the corner, another says the equivalent of "Nah, that freaking foreigner doesn't know about any of this stuff. Pocky and Ramune lolol," while using a pejorative term for foreigner. Major faux pas. I looked the guy square in the eye and told him in very informal Japanese, "Here, you are the foreigner. The radish is in the first cooler, second shelf under the miso." Then in more formal, "Do you require any additional assistance?" All his buddies gave the typical Japanese "Whoa, while the aide bowed deeply, apologizing over and over. He went and waited in the van. From then on, any time that group came into the store and my car was parked out front, he stayed in the van. Funny that you're still referred to as a foreigner in Mississippi by a Japanese guy. Foreigner as in clearly not Japanese, I'd imagine. Well, at least it's a big sign of respect, mixed with shame and regret, that he continued to wait in the van during future visits. One of my friends speaks fluent Japanese and lived in Japan for several years. He's also blonde-haired and blue-eyed. When he was there, he would occasionally go for late-night walks. Apparently one of his favorite things was passing drunken businessmen who were stumbling home. They would loudly and drunkenly comment to themselves about a gaijin. He would pan his head around, as if looking for something, and simply go doko. Then he'd chuckle to himself and continue walking as they began to have a "wait, how drunk am I" moment.